Good evening, everyone. 15-second warning, please. Good evening, everyone. Welcome here on July 23rd. We've been in closed session, and I need a motion to come out of closed. And I think Councillor Devine has a motion.
Council to rise from closed session, seconded by Councillor Donna Reid.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So I will do the honors of bringing forward our report from closed session. I'm very pleased to report that David Calder has been selected as the new city manager for Cambridge with a September start date. We will pass a motion, and it was moved by Councillor Liggett. It was seconded by Councillor Devine, and I'll read it as follows. At the July 11th, 2019 council meeting, a closed session was held to finalize the selection of a new city manager. I'm very pleased to report that David Calder has been selected as the new city manager for Cambridge. Members of council, we will now call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'm going to call for some applause too. Thank you very much. As you see, there might be some excitement in the room. So now we'll get going on our council meeting agenda for this evening. I'm going to ask all to rise for the singing of our national anthem. Thank you. You may be seated. So we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gathered today is the land traditionally used by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Thank you. Moving forward, members of council, are there any items of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our first item of business. The first person we have is a delegation, and that's Mark Rosard on the Cambridge Rotary Rib Fest 2019. Mark? Did you bring any ribs tonight? Not yet.
You'll have to come to Rib Fest for that.
Great answer. Go ahead.
But I should note that my last name is Rosad, not Rosard. I know the city has a problem with that, but in various documents, but Susan has promised to fix that up for us. But we're, Your Worship and Council, we're here to extend an invitation to the 6th Annual Cambridge Rib Fest. As many of you are aware, Rotary has a long-standing tradition in the community. We're best known for our work with the Kids Ability, which was started by Rotary, and we've raised well over $1.2 million in support of Kids Ability and helping 2,000 children in Cambridge. And I know our worship has been at our superhero run quite a bit, and not this year, but for good reasons. Cambridge Rotary Rib Fest has become our biggest fundraiser, jointly organized by the Cambridge Rotary Club of Cambridge Sunrise and the Rotary Club of Cambridge North. And the Rib Fest is solely organized by dedicated Rotarians and volunteers from across our community. And over 200 volunteers assisted the event. So you can see our mission statement. I just want to point out that our very first year, we won the 2014 Best Event of the Year at the Cambridge and North Dumfries Community Awards. So it was quite a popular inaugural event. Last year, the attendance was up over 18%, despite the ongoing construction challenges, and we're expecting a few more challenges this year, but we know in a couple of years that'll be over. We had 227 volunteers who contributed 3,746 hours, which is a tremendous amount, and a lot of the high school students in town use RibFest for their community hours, so we're very successful with all the high schools. There's a look at some of our sponsors from last year. So about RibFest 2019, so August 9th to August 11th, we have a big focus on free admission, free parking, free kids zone, free entertainment. We're expecting over 30,000 people. We have 6 award-winning ribbers, a bunch of other great food vendors, and many merchandise vendors. One of our big things is to raise awareness of what Rotary clubs do, that our focus is on health, hunger, and humanity. And one of the biggest things Rotary does is we're trying to eradicate polio all across the world, and there's not too many, there's 3 countries left, I believe. One of the biggest comments we get from our food vendors is that Cambridge Rib Fest is by far the most family-friendly Rib Fest they attend all year in Ontario. So that really goes to what our mission statement. One of the big things, we also have the Classic Car Show, which runs on Saturday from 11 till 3. And I promise if you come out, you'll see a lot of interesting vehicles and unique cars. And we also have, in response to surveys, much more shade areas, shade tents available. Some of the local benefits we have are obviously showcasing local bands, artists, and craft people. And we also have the opportunity for local charities to raise money at the event, such as a coping support group or coping bereavement. The benefits, according to the ODF factor, are well over $500,000 to the city. And we draw attendees from all over the region. And of course, it's a great opportunity for city staff and councillors to mingle with a large number of residents in a very relaxed setting. Last year we commissioned a comprehensive survey. So speaking to a family-friendly event, the adults aged 18 to 39 represented 63% of the people surveyed. And a lot of the people surveyed were young families with the mother filling out the survey. Approximately 82% of the attendees were from Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. And interesting, 98% said they planned on spending money after the event in Cambridge. So we'd like to thank City Council for their tremendous support over the years. We want to single out Susan Katumba, Chris Zemsky, Rick DeMello, and Wanda Schaefer-Stilling. We aren't here for a handout, but we certainly appreciate any support. And we're actually glad that you've hired a city manager. I understand that's going to help level the playing field with all the special events and making sure that we're all on the same level. And also, we hope that the city can assist us in promoting the event. And I understand already from the press release I sent out on Monday that that's happening internally. So we appreciate everything the city does for us, and we hope to see everyone at Cambridge Ribfest.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we all look forward to not only the taste, but certainly the smell that comes from the park around that time. Thank you so much for the successful event, and we'll most likely be there, all of us. Thank you. Moving forward, members of council, we now move to item 8, the Core Area Transformation Fund. And we have our interim city manager to give us a presentation on that. Thank you, Jeff. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a pleasure on behalf of staff to present our proposal for a Core Area Transformation Fund in the amount of $35 million. We're very pleased to present this report and recommendation, and I'm grateful for the support of some staff that helped pull all this together. James Goodrum from Economic Development, Cheryl Ayers, our Chief Financial Officer, and the entire corporate leadership team. The focus of this fund will be on bold community building initiatives that draw more people to live and work in Cambridge's 3 core areas. As we all know, the downtown core is a reflection of the city. For better or for worse, it reflects the city's health and is the image that all visitors have of a city when they first come to it. Our cores have a lot of great potential and many competitive advantages, but we need more people living and working in our core areas to boost urban vitality, and we have struggled recently to attract new residential development. The opportunity before us is to transform our core areas into vibrant communities where people want to live, work, and enjoy their experiences. The primary goal of the fund is to make our core areas places that people want to be, to increase livability. We know that more people are moving to mid-sized cities. They're more affordable than major metropolitan areas, and people still want to be in walkable urban areas that are rich with amenities and are accessible by transit. So if we can make our core areas meet all of those needs, we can seize the opportunity. The outcome of all that would be urban vitality, vibrant downtowns, a renewed sense of pride, economic growth, and neighborhoods that are transformed into thriving urban areas. But all that doesn't happen by accident. Larry Beasley is a highly respected urban planner, Canadian planner, and he said this about the challenges that face many mid-sized cities with their downtown cores. He said, "There's nothing wrong with this downtown that wouldn't be solved by having thousands more people living in it." So that's the challenge for us here in Cambridge. And the good news is we have a lot of strengths that we can build on. Our history, our built heritage, the stone buildings and the skylines dotted with steeples, and of course, the rivers. And we've got 3 unique core areas that we can take advantage of. In Hespeler, urban revitalization is already starting to happen. Hespeler Village is nestled right along the Speed River. It's got a great scene of local pubs, restaurants, craft breweries, the Fashion History Museum, Friday Farmers Market, and people are embracing urban living with a riverside setting. Recent developments are adding to urban vitality in Hespeler, and there's opportunity for more, as several key sites remain vacant or underutilized. So the city can stimulate more of that type of development by investing in cultural destinations, in placemaking initiatives, in different ways to celebrate the river. Preston has the atmosphere of a traditional Main Street Ontario. There's opportunity for significant increases in residential density, as a future LRT station will be located at the north end of the Preston core. Community building efforts are well underway, and those are a great start. Central Park is a good example. It hosts a variety of community events, small festivals, and of course, Riverside Park, the city's largest park, is right close by. The opportunities for development are significant, and they're pretty visible. The vacant land and vacant buildings are opportunities for development or adaptive reuse. We need to invest in order to stimulate new interest in this area. And that brings us to downtown Cambridge, or the Galt Core. It's the largest of our 3 core areas, and it has the city's most iconic architecture, excellent access to the Grand River. It's home to City Hall, the Centre for the Arts, and it's identified in the Provincial Growth Plan as our urban growth centre. Again, there are opportunities for development, plenty of opportunities for development, and this will transform parts of the downtown where that development takes place. That kind of development not only builds urban vitality, but it helps to strengthen the business case for Phase 2 of the ION LRT. If we don't invest in our core areas, we may continue to stagnate, and we might not have enough density or the transit ridership to support LRT. And the Galt Core is home to 2 rapid transit station areas and will be the terminus of the ION Stage 2. But again, there's good news. We've got a lot of strengths to build on. The city has already invested in arts and culture, investing in cultural projects like the Hamilton Family Theatre, the Digital Light Show at the Idea Exchange, and this is a great foundation for placemaking and vitality. Our built heritage is a major competitive advantage and something to be celebrated, and we've got great examples of adaptive reuse of heritage buildings. In the Gaslight District, the Gaslight District in the Southworks Industrial Complex, the Idea Exchange at the old post office, and of course, the UW School of Architecture in the old silk mill. Investing in post-secondary programs is probably the smartest investment, one of the best investments that a city can make. The University of Waterloo School of Architecture has made major contributions to the vibrancy of our downtown core. Conestoga College also has a presence here as part of the Gaslight District, and both the university and the college are considering expanding in our downtown, and they need our support. Placemaking and civic landmarks creates destinations, builds community pride, and promotes a sense of place. The city's investment in the pedestrian bridge is an excellent example. And again, it builds on the assets that we have that distinguish us from nearby communities. The outcomes of all of that are listed on the screen, but I'm going to focus on the first one, more people living in the downtown core areas. By far, that's the most important outcome that we're looking for. And even if that's the only one where we make progress, that could be a really positive thing. It'll improve the case for ION Phase 2, and then rapid transit will become the catalyst for the other outcomes. There's an old saying, if you only do what you can, you'll never be better than you are now. That's the challenge for us, and it's the opportunity for us to be better than we are now. It's ambitious, but I submit that it's necessary to avoid stagnation and to take advantage of the amazing potential that's all around us in Cambridge. The report has all the details, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or you may wish to hear from other delegations first.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Is there any questions or comments from council at the moment about the presentation? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Jeff, thanks for the presentation. I agree with what you've said, that the investment in our downtown cores is vitally important to the future of our community. The request that you're making, that's not going to be funded through the tax base, is it?
Through the chair, what we're recommending is that the first $20 million can be achieved by a transfer from the Economic Development Reserve. It has a little over $26 million in it now, and the $6 million would continue to provide for the purposes that the Economic Development Program has outside the core, but $20 million goes a long way towards starting that $35 million fund. There's a number of different ways or combination of ways that could be drawn upon to close the gap. We talked last week about the School of Architecture, and if council decides to support that in the same way that it did previously, it would be by means of a loan guarantee paid out over 10 or 15 years or something in that range. So the dollar amount per year becomes a lot more manageable, and I would suggest that for the $35 million fund, this is something that we would look to achieve over about a 10 or 12 year period. It happens to coincide with when LRT is proposed. And so while it might have an impact on the tax rate, it could also take advantage of increased tax assessment, maybe from industrial growth that we have more of than most cities. It could also benefit from the dividend from Energy Plus. So there's other ways, but it might be a combination of those, and again, over many years.
Thanks, Jeff. And just to follow up, if I may, Madam Chair, and I know you already said this, Jeff, but just to reiterate, and the money would be utilized in all of the 3 downtown cores of Galt, Preston, and Hespeler.
Yes, I would expect so. There are opportunities in all 3 cores, and I think there are needs in all 3. I would suggest that the needs are greater in Preston and Galt, and also the opportunity or the expectation to prepare ourselves for the rapid transit era is a distinguishing factor between Preston and Hespeler or Preston and Galt than it is in Hespeler. But there are certainly opportunities in Hespeler, and I think we would bring back our prioritization to council, and ultimately council would be able to consider projects on their merits.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. I've got a few more. Councillor Devine.
Jeff, thank you for your leadership and your foresight on this issue, along with James Goodrum from Economic Development. I am somewhat concerned that I think this is a great idea, but I'm concerned in the fact with the answer that was just given, Hespeler could likely be in greater need than the other 2 cores, quite simply because the ION is not coming to Hespeler. So there are requirements in Hespeler, there are needs in Hespeler, there are needs across all 3 cores. And Hespeler's done better last few years, done better, but like the other 3 cores, it could do a lot better. Because along the river, like we had a program some time ago, was come back to the rivers. Well, the only river that really got affected was here, the Grand River here in the Galt Corps. There had been nothing done in the along the Hespeler Corps, Speed River, or the Speed River in Preston. So as we look at this and as we go through this exercise, we have to look at all 3 cores. Now, clearly, each and every councillor has their own issues in their area, but I don't want to see this as being one-sided, because the taxpayers will get quite upset if it appears to be one-sided. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, certainly, yeah, we hear you, we acknowledge that, and I did point out in my presentation that there's opportunities in Hespeler, and that one way that the city can stimulate more development there, or development more quickly, is by investing in cultural destinations, placemaking initiatives along the river. I know there's a master plan for creating an urban environment along Milling Road, and the other aspect, which is not only for Hespeler, but for probably the Hespeler and Preston cores, is if the city's acquiring land as a strategic land acquisition, in the short term that can be used for surface parking, which I think is the BIAs in Hespeler and Preston have pointed out that there's a need there. So I would agree with you, there's opportunities and needs in all 3 cores.
Thank you. Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, thank you for this, and as Councillor Devine said, for your leadership in putting this forward. I think it's a very good legacy for you to have left for your short time that you've been here. When I look at page 66, and it talks about transformational projects, and it says, please note that project carrying out business as usual will not be supported under this fund. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on examples, maybe not using what we have today, but potential people who will be coming to try to use this fund that we do not want this fund to be used for, please?
Well, I don't have particular examples in mind, but I think what the reference really is that there's a number of aspects of economic development and downtown development that we do already and that other municipalities do already. That's not the purpose of this fund. This is to be a difference maker and to take it to the next level for projects that are truly transformational. And so if it's a business as usual, something perhaps that we're already doing and we're just looking for another way to fund it, I wouldn't want to see the fund eaten away by being just a revenue stream for projects that are already underway.
Okay, thank you for that, and I think we all need to keep that in the back of our minds every time something comes before us. So a second question, Madam Chair. On page 67, under number 5, Community Services Strategy, you speak to the need to review the community services in the downtown areas, current facilities and locations. Would you like to elaborate on that, or am I putting you on the spot?
Well, I'm on the stand, so I guess I'm on the spot. So let me use one example of that. The food bank is a service that provides a greatly needed service in this community, is greatly respected and is used by a lot of people. And under Cameron Dearlove's leadership and his predecessors, they've also got a small collection of wraparound services that are co-located with them that provide good supports for people who use the food bank. The building doesn't suit their purpose as well, and the location may not be ideal as well. And so rather than us trying to fix up the building or expand it in its current location, when we look at that location, and it's only half a block from the future terminus of the LRT line, what I see and what I think our staff see is that this is ground zero for LRT inspired redevelopment. This will become mixed use, dense development, probably of a medium rise. And so we need to find a new home for the food bank. We're their landlord now, and we're pleased to be their landlord in the future. But if we can find a building that suits their purposes better in an appropriate location that's transit accessible to their users, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're talking about something that's more centrally located for all of the people in the community who need to access the food bank rather than the ones in the south end of Cambridge? A better central location.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten into location yet, but it needs to be accessible for sure. And I think that part of what we're looking for the newly struck or soon to be struck Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee is to help us put our minds to what is the right collection of services that belong with a food bank, and what is the right collection of services that could belong with a future consumption and treatment services site. How do they differ from each other? That way we can figure out what size of a building do we need, what kind of a site do we need, what kind of a location suits it best. And so, yeah, certainly an accessible location for the food bank, something central, or something where it can easily get goods movement to and from, refrigerated storage, all those kind of things, they become considerations.
Thank you. Councillor Montero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions, and part of it was already answered. But going back to the fund, the 35 million fund, although we have the 20 mil to start with the Economic Development Reserve Fund, we can take 20 mil out of that, and the hydro dividends too. But this is a fund. Could this be, it doesn't necessarily have to be topped up to the 35 mil right away. Could we extend the, because there's other reserves that we can also dip into. But this is, could extend this over 3, 4, 5 years to top it up to the 35 mil, starting with the 20 mil that we have already. That's feasible.
Yes, it is. I would suggest that starting with 20 million, we could take easily, 10 years as a planned program to achieve the 35.
My second question, Your Worship, if you allow me so, is regarding the fund, the purpose. Okay, I'll give an example. We've been talking about moving bridges out of the downtown core for quite some time, and we haven't been successful finding a location. And as you mentioned before about the food bank combination treatment site and shelter, could that fund be used to help move bridges out of the downtown?
Yes, it could. I would suggest that falls into a similar category of community services and trying to find the right location for them. Now, the decision is not necessarily the city's decision. The Cambridge Shelter Corporation will control that, but if we can influence that decision and contribute towards it, I think this fund could be instrumental in having that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're ready for delegations, and the first one on my list is Lawrence Allen. As you come forward, Mr. Allen, Devana will look after you there.
I have to introduce myself. Just go with it. Oh, no. Oh, this is. Let's go. Okay, I guess I don't have to introduce myself, waste that time.
Welcome. Please begin when you're ready.
My name's Lawrence Allen. I'm a 55-year resident of Rose Street, Cambridge, Preston. I turned 90 this year. I'm here to try to get a proposal to have a non-profit IMAX theater museum built in Cambridge. It would recognize the contribution of the four geniuses of the IMAX culture and heritage. We don't own it. We have some kind of bragging rights for it. It could become and would become the foremost tourist attraction Cambridge ever saw. And if we play this right, we don't have to lay out for very much money at all. With dedicated leadership, Cambridge funding could be limited to site-ready location. Okay, July the 19th paper, it encouraged council to be bold. Well, you want bold, here's bold. Why not a science center? Why not Science South, Ontario Science South? It would, IMAX would be the feature offer. If we wanted to be courteous, we could invite Brantford to come up with Bell. We could invite Waterloo to bring along the Perimeter Institute. We live in what Doug Craig commented on when he, in his latter days of office, we live in Cambridge in a renaissance. We've lived in a renaissance for three generations. The great renaissance of the Dark Ages was 2 centuries. It had Da Vinci, it had Michelangelo. We've got people whose names we haven't even touched. This paper, this well-written paper, I've read it twice. And every time I read it, IMAX pops off in between the paragraphs. Now, Science South, funded by the federal and provincial governments. They do it. They've done it up in Sudbury. Sudbury has this immaculate snowflake-shaped science center. At 9 o'clock every morning, they start documentaries by the National Film Board that feature IMAX films. IMAX and the National Film Board are like this. Colin Lowe, the late Colin Lowe, and the people at IMAX were, the things that they produced are world-renowned. Cambridge does, there are 1,100 IMAX theaters throughout the world. There are 100 in China. Where's the one in Cambridge, where the thing was born? Down the road at Landmark, and the most disgusting piece of architecture I've ever seen. Okay. This is the one that I think you should turn off your cell phones, tighten your seatbelts, and it's a one-liner. And this is why this gentleman and I should get together and talk about things. I'm not talking about renewing old buildings or putting them in little glass boxes. I'm talking about a geodesic dome in the middle of the Grand River. You say, okay, this guy is really nuts. Go back to Expo 67. Look what Drapeau did there. 1953, I think it was, Ontario Place. The sphere there has been running north of Superior for continuously, nonstop, for something like 50 years. When I first came to Cambridge in '67, and I went to Expo and saw some of the films over there, Labyrinth, the Charge of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, others. My children were all baby boomers. We still talk about it. We would stand in line for 2 hours to see something we saw the day before. And it was IMAX, image magnifier. These guys, early on when I got involved in this 50 years ago, this is my life, 50 years. I was told to mind my own business. I was told, don't go there. Now, IMAX is gone. I can say whatever freaking thing I want to say. What I want to say is that Cambridge deserves it, but you got to work for it. We've got to organize a group of people as excited as I am. My best before date is very short. However, my grandson, 34, wise beyond his years, at a little family gathering, we got talking about this, and he stepped forward and said, I'll take over, Grandpa. The reason he's not here tonight, he's at work at Toyota. Is Toyota our claim to fame? Is that what people come from elsewhere to see? That's it, folks.
Mr. Allen, you've given us a tremendous amount of things to think about. If you will stay there, we've got some questions and comments from council. And I might just add a personal note that my dad is your age, and I recall going to Expo 67 as a young lady. You have a better memory of it than I do. Councillor Devine.
Do you mind if I call you Larry?
My hearing's not good, and I don't even know
well,
instruction.
let me speak up. You never had a problem hearing me before. Do you mind if I call you Larry?
Pardon?
Do you mind if I call you Larry? Because that's what I've known you for, is 45 years working with you.
I still can.
He wants to call you Larry.
That's me.
Yes.
Oh, okay, Mike.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much for coming today. Okay, and you know, this is something that you've always been a forward thinker. Ever since I've known you, you've been a forward thinker for many, many years.
Thank you very much.
And if this is something that if your grandson wants to pursue with you, then I think it needs to be investigated.
Well, my dear wife is not here.
I see that.
We've been married 66 years, and she has dementia. But she is my best support. I would turn around and she'd be there. And
I know that.
I gotta go. I don't know that, but you know, the gentleman that spoke before, we do have a heritage of, and this would be part of the museum. Let me rattle off a few companies. Canada Office School Furniture, 3 shoe companies, Savage, Genesco, Andy McNeese, the best hockey sticks and baseball bats in the world. They're not there anymore. These are all gone.
That's right.
What's another industry that runs a past? Just a couple of years ago, ComDev went hand in hand with Cambridge Towel. Now here are 2 ends of the technological Spectrum. You have ComDev, who are got all sorts of things up in space. And a towel. Every time I look at a towel, I wonder, how the deuce was that thing made? What else? My mind lets me down. Okay, folks, I would dearly love to meet with some staff committee or whatever that deals with culture, theater, entertainment, because that's what this would bring. The children would have free entrance to this museum, theater, whatever we're going to call it, until they were of the age when they went into high school and learned the responsibility of money. Now, this is something off the wall, but it's out there. You get a membership card that would last your lifetime if you wanted to invest in it. But it would have a changing, as you've changed it, it would be a miniature smartphone or card. And it would have images of whatever was being projected currently in IMAX. Right now, Dumbo at one end of the scale. What's the other one? Oh, it's a wild one. Game of Thrones. So there you are. Children, adults. They're doing a remake of The Lion King. I heard a movie critic reviewing it, and he said, it's all Disney. Disney, IMAX, I guess, owns Disney now. And he said, the difference is, Disney made The Lion King fierce, and it's in the eyes. He said, the new IMAX Lion King, it's in the eyes. The Lion King is an old man, an old, wise, broken man. They did a remake of Michael Jackson's Thriller. You name it, they've done it. And we don't have anything to claim except, oh, well, I did a little traveling in my time, and I'd say I was from Cambridge. They said, oh, England? No. Oh, Massachusetts? No. I said, Ontario. Never heard of it. I said, well, that's where IMAX. IMAX! They knew all about IMAX, but they didn't know about Cambridge, Ontario. My wife, truthfully, says I'm verbose, and I don't apologize for it. But if she was here, she has a signal. Here she goes. So, thank you for your time. I'm available. I request some semblance of privacy because of my wife. I'm the prime caregiver. I never cooked a meal in my life. I can't stand my own cooking, but we're alive, we're well, we're happy, and this is in my head, my heart, and my gut. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen, you've given so much to talk about. There's a couple of other people that would like to make a comment, but if you'd like, you could sit down. If not, can you wait there? Do you want to sit down there? And Councillor Liggett would like to say a few words.
A few of the council members would like to ask you questions or provide
great.
comments.
I can still stand.
You okay?
Yep. This is just a prop.
No problem.
To make you feel sorry.
No.
It's just for show, we know. Councillor Liggett.
I think his cane is actually Shirley's prop to tell him to stop being verbose, right? So Larry, you and I have been friends for an awful long time, and what I want is people to realize that you're one of the people, you're one of the reasons why RARE exists today. Larry was a very active protester, and him and I carried a coffin at Guelph University protesting with their security staff and administration horrified that we were all handing out pamphlets to the students to save that property for an environmental preserve. Larry was quite capable of carrying that coffin on his shoulders back then. And Claudette Miller tried to be incognito about it, but Claudette actually paid, Mayor Miller paid for that coffin. She was in up to her neck on that. So Larry, I just want to thank you again for all that you have done for this community that nobody knows about. You're one of those unrecognized heroes that have made this community what it is today. And I think you are correct. This community should have done something a long time ago about IMAX Theater and because it originated here. And I'm wondering if we can give a direction to staff tonight to sit with Larry and his grandson or whomever he designates to this, to see if what we can do, whether it may not happen in our lifetimes, Larry, but if we could at least start on that trail towards some sort of an end goal to do something in this community to recognize the fact that IMAX originated in this community, and I hope that at least it can start while we're all still here, Larry. Okay.
I can add to that business back when we picketed University of Guelph, the public relations came out in her high heels and asked Les Kadar to get his mad dogs off the property. Yeah. Well, I'm still a card-carrying mad dog. And once I get my teeth sunk into something like this, I can't say enough about this theater. When I don't know how many of you have seen the one at Ontario Place, north of Superior. Our family are all baby boomers. My 7-year-old at the time was sitting next to me. And when the plane, I think it was an otter, it flew over and dropped, she went like that. I did too. But then we flew over the forest fire. I could feel the kid getting warm and hot. That's what IMAX can do. There's something that's a definition of the technique. It's something to do with, it takes your imagination and works on it, and you have no longer any control of it. Well, I don't know. There was the one, I think, at Expo 67, which caught the kids' fancy. And then they lined up for 2 hours to see these things without complaining. I think it was the RCMP musical ride. And there weren't seats. You stood at a rail. You didn't understand why until the finale. And the Lancers made the charge. This was a circular theater. And, you got this 100 horses charging at you. Well, that's why you were standing, so you could grab the rail and duck. Everybody around you was almost laying on the floor. That's what IMAX can do. It can take your imagination and... Hello, how are you?
Thank you so much. I think we have one more comment, Councillor Mehta, and I think we'll take direction as per Councillor Liggett to have staff and those that are interested to sit down with you at some point. Councillor Mehta?
I'd like to thank you, Larry, for all you've done for the community, for your hard work, and I love big ideas. I'd like to look at it. If your son would like to, you and your son want to come in and talk to staff, or you could come to the Arts and Culture Committee as well, which I happen to be on, and we love to hear new ideas. And maybe even the BIA might be interested in hearing it. So if you've got different ideas, we'd certainly want to hear from that. And I was up in Sudbury at Science North, loved the facility. And of course, I saw an IMAX film when I was up there. And
Really, honestly, just scratched the surface here. This bag is so full of stuff. When I mentioned Colin, the fellow who was so close to IMAX at the beginning from National Film Board, I have the obituary. It's a full-page obit in the Globe and Mail. IMAX is mentioned 7 times. The National Film Board, 11 times. That's got to tell you something. The things that these two guys put together. Getting back to what they're doing up in Sudbury. At 9 o'clock in the morning, they start a series of non-stop IMAX National Film Board documentaries, winners. It runs from 9 till 9. What does this tell you? I did a little street survey many years ago, and it's amazing how many people don't know they know about IMAX, but they don't know that it was born here. It's a pity, it really is. And it's theirs. It's been there forever, 50 years, for us to do something with it. My correspondence has taken me to some very, very nice people at the IMAX Corporation. The corporate offices are in Toronto, but they're in New York, they're in Los Angeles, they're in London, they're in Paris. Even if we got a shoe shine stand here in Cambridge, we'd be doing something. But I'm starting to lose it already.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Allen.
you.
You may take your seat, and we will be in touch. Thank you so very much for your service
very
as
much.
well as your ideas. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
It was my pleasure.
Ours as well.
I hope I can do something more.
We'll move forward with the next delegation. Scott Hamilton. Welcome, Scott.
Good evening. Thank you to Council and to the Mayor for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Scott Hamilton. I live on 6 Ash Street in Galt, Cambridge. It's where I want to raise a family. And that's why I'm here speaking to you tonight. I'm in favor of the Core Areas Transformation Fund for our downtown cores. And to begin, I'd like to use a landscaping analogy because I used to work in landscaping. So if any of you are gardeners out there, you might be familiar with this. And it is the best time to plant a maple tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant that maple tree is today. So our days seem to move slowly, but our weeks and the years, they move by very quickly. So the actions that we take today will affect all of us and our families in the future to come. So I'm in favor of this fund because it is an investment in the future, not of the present, investment in the future of Cambridge. It's an investment that can and should be made today. And for the past few months, I've spoken with many small business owners, students, residents, and tourists of Cambridge. And I know for small business owners, as we've heard, they agree that all of our cores have a lot of potential, but they feel like it's been on the cusp of this potential for years and years and years, and they're still waiting for that final breakthrough to allow our cores to develop and reach what we all know they're capable of. So this fund would really allow all 3 of our cores to flourish. So it's an investment not just in our economy, but in growing a sense of community. As for students, we know they're thriving in Galt at the architecture school. They're thriving at Conestoga College. We know the income they bring to the city. We know the tourism. We know the culture. And as we heard from the executive director, the head of the architecture school last week, there's still much more we can do in this area. So this transformation fund would really bring not just national but international attention to Cambridge. It would bring in tourist dollars, it would bring in culture, and again, it would foster that sense of community, not just for the present, but an investment in the future. And also residents. We all know that our residents are being pulled out of our cores to larger stores on Hespeler Road. We see the line of empty shops in many of our streets, and we've all heard stories about people, our neighbors, that are afraid to walk in our downtown cores in the evenings and at night. What this core transformation fund can do is return residences, offices, restaurants, and people to our downtown areas. It can create that bustling sense of community that we all feel, I think, in some ways is absent. And it's that last key word that I'd just like to mention to Council and the Mayor to dwell on, and it's that sense of community. What this fund can do is invest in a sense of community and grow it going forth. So we heard about the old post office light show, and especially the Jurassic Park that recently occurred with the Toronto Raptors run to the NBA Finals. And champions, go Raptors. These weren't just events of Cambridge, but what they allow us to do is to reach every single age, every level of income, every status, every nationality, every religion. None of those things matter for these investments, for these events, because it brings everyone together and allows them to grow with a sense of community. And it's these types of initiatives that this fund would grant Cambridge the potential to really increase in the future. So I would just like to stress to Council to go forward with this fund. If we begin these transformations today, our children will thank us. And as the old expression goes, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. And we all know that this is a change we need to make. So I will leave it at that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming. The next delegation is Patrick Simmons. Welcome, Patrick.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you tonight. My name is Patrick Simmons. I live at 34 Salisbury Avenue. As many of you know, I sit on the board of the BIA, and I'm representing them in part today, but I also like to speak on my own behalf. I own an apartment building downtown here in Cambridge, and I live a short walk from downtown. I'm also an architect, and we do work in many of the communities in Southern Ontario, transformative projects that we're very proud of. One we're particularly proud of is the Gaslight District across the river. Looking forward to that being built. I'm really very happy to be here tonight because of the subject of tonight's council meeting. I think just the discussion itself puts us in the ranks of other cities who have recognized that cities are very different today than they were. We need a whole new toolbox to deal with the issues that we're facing as communities. And this city, by putting this motion forward tonight, assuming that it goes to the floor, is saying that, hey, we're ready to use different tools. We acknowledge that cities change, grow, and thrive very differently now than they used to, and we need a whole new set of tools to deal with that, and a reserve fund is one of those tools. They say it's not the strongest that survive, it's the ones that can adapt quickly, and I think the city, by considering this reserve fund tonight, is taking a change to become one of those cities, like some of the more successful communities in North America, to acknowledge that we need to use new ways of changing our community. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'd like to obviously add my voice and that of the BIA to encourage the city council to adopt the motion of creating this reserve fund. It shows that not only are we interested in change, that we're a progressive community, but we also have confidence in our downtowns. For us to say, let's invest this money, says to other investors, other people who are considering moving here as residents, as business people, as well as shoppers, consumers, and people just coming to visit our community, that we have confidence in ourselves. And if we don't have the confidence to invest in our community, why should we expect others to? People are watching our city, and I think they need to see that we're taking our challenges seriously, and we do have challenges in our core areas, and they need creativity, they need energy, they need lots of work to begin to solve them. And my wife and I have raised 6 kids in our community, and only one of them, they're all adults, they've grown up and moved on. One of them lives in this community. I'd love if some of the others moved back. And as they get older and wiser and our community gets better, they are considering moving back. And I think that's wonderful news to hear. I think our community, our downtowns are almost there. And I think with a little bit more effort and something like this reserve fund, I think we can push it over the goal line and make some more of our kids move back to this city to live and work. So please consider this very carefully, and we encourage you to put this motion in effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions for members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming. Council members, I might just point out the correspondence in your package this evening from Pearl Hospitality, HIP Developments, all of the BIAs, the Chamber, Bill Bennett, another resident, just regarding this item. Thank you. I think we're ready for the motion. Councillor Reid. Oh, sorry, I do see a comment from Councillor Wolf. No. Councillor Reid. There you go.
Thank you. Yep. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wolf, the Core Areas Transformation Funds. And do you want me to read it out? Okay. That report 19-218 OCM, via Core Areas Transformation Fund, be received, and that the creation of a $35 million Core Area Transformation Fund be approved in principle as described in report 19-218, with the detailed funding to be determined as part of the city's 2020 budget process, and that a Core Areas Transformation Reserve Fund be established, and that $20 million be transferred from the Economic Development Reserve Fund to the Core Areas Transformation Reserve Fund. And further, that staff, in consultation with the Economic Development Advisory Committee and the Business Improvement Associations, be directed to report back before year-end with the following: options to the funding model, implementation plan, criteria for evaluation of proposals, policy for oversight and management of the fund, a mechanism for public reporting on progress, outcomes, and adherence to compliance requirements, and an update on the new purpose of the Economic Development Reserve Fund as complementary to the Core Areas Transformation Fund. And I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm very much in favor of this motion. It is a bold motion, but I think it's one that's needed. And certainly, we've heard from delegations tonight, and we have also many letters that have come in to us, and also emails from people in our community that also want us to be bold. I particularly like the one that said, dream, dare, do. They're asking us to do. I think that we have invested. We do have some destination places like our Idea Exchange, like our pedestrian bridge which over 201,000 people have traveled since it opened. But we need more. As I do have to speak about Preston and Hespeler, and particularly the Preston Springs. There is definitely, and I love the fact that you had a picture of it. Thank you very much for that. The Preston Springs is one of the areas that I think could benefit from this fund. And it's part of the pillars, if we looked at the 5 pillars, and I think that there where we would have private sector stimulus to have something happen with that particular area. And I think that that's extremely important to Preston, and redevelopment or reuse of that particular Preston Springs Hotel, I think would bring a vitality to Preston that it needs. I'm very pleased with what has happened in Hespeler already, and I know certainly we're looking forward to maybe something further happening along Milling Road. It's been something in our minds for a long time, and kind of a dream to have a pedestrian walkway there and to further develop along the river. These are things that can happen if we have this fund. I think what I really, really like about this fund is that when things come to us to debate whether or not we should invest in the core, we're debating the value of it. We're debating how it's going to benefit our community rather than debating where we're going to get the money from. And I think it frees us, having that money behind us, it frees us then to look at the development in a different light than always an economic light of where can we fund it from. So I also feel that this is a way that we can connect our 3 cores. I've often felt that there needs to be a better connection between the Galt, Preston, and Hespeler cores, and that there has to be some way we can better connect them. And maybe with this fund we can find some ways that we can connect. And there have been some suggestions, I'm sure there'll be some in the future. But all of this together I think is very exciting. It gives us an opportunity to be forward-thinking, and I think it supports what many in our community are saying. So I'm very much in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I too enthusiastically support this motion. We received many correspondence, all positive, and I'm just going to read a little bit from some of them. From the Hespeler BIA, we urge Council to accept the recommendation of the Economic Development staff to create the Core Areas Transformation Fund, and we look forward to closely working with them on the detailed report to Council. From the Chamber of Commerce, we are in unified lockstep with this report. We believe this will change our community and its path of success forever, and we must move in precisely this direction. The Chamber of Commerce humbly asks that you support the establishment of the Core Area Transformation Fund. From a West Galt resident, I strongly support the notion that Cambridge needs to be bold and innovative and create a place where development is welcomed and assisted. We need more people living and working in the core areas, and we need to invest to make that happen. From the Cambridge BIA, which disagrees with Councillor Reid because they say 326,000 people have crossed the pedestrian bridge. But they also say, we believe it is very important that our city allocate resources and tools to push growth and start making strategic investments in key economic stimulators, such as post-secondary education, transit system, such as the LRT, and residential density. We enthusiastically support the Core Areas Transformation Fund. And the Preston Town Centre BIA says, this investment supports intensification, stops urban sprawl, and protects our urban boundary. This initiative checks all the boxes for smart growth and helps ensure the long-term vitality of our heritage-rich core areas. So as you can see, we have had a great deal of support for this motion. And like Councillor Reid, what I like best about it is that so often we turn down a good idea or a great project because we don't want to raise taxes. We equate the project with this will mean a 2% rise in property taxes. And if we have this fund, we won't have to do that. And we can look at the merits of the project. Last week, Council voted unanimously to support the School of Architecture expansion. And this fund will give us the means to actually fund that expansion and other projects that are similar that will make a transformational difference in our three core areas. So again, I urge the rest of Council also to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Montero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After reading this report, and it was very easy reading and very informative. Thanks to James Goodrum and Jeff Wilmer, our interim city manager, for the report. After reading it, it made so much sense. And I don't want to repeat what's already been said by Jeff, by Councillor Reid, Councillor Wolf. I got my own line. Status quo is not working. The wait-and-see approach doesn't work either. We, as a council, have to grab the bull by the horns and do something. And this fund is it. And now is the time to do it. So I'm 100% for this. And it's too bad, although it's been mentioned, talked, but it fell by the wayside. Now is the time to do something. Let's all do it. And I wasn't gonna ask for this, Madam Mayor. We were joking about a recorded vote, but it's not very often that I see those two screens, or one, or all of the screens, all green. I'd love to see it all green today, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I believe through you, Councillor Montero is really an environmentalist and he likes to see a green screen. You know, I too support this motion. We've talked about bold steps need to be taken, and certainly Mr. Wilmer and Mr. Goodrum have taken bold steps in coming forward with their staff and coming up with this idea. The core is the heartbeat of our community, and we have three distinct cores. They're all very different, but they all contribute to the well-being of our community. And when all three of them beat well together, then we have a very strong, significant community. And of course, as Councillor Reid has mentioned, I have to speak a little bit about Preston because that's Ward 3, and specifically Preston Springs still is, yes, Preston Springs is Ward 1, but it is a neighbor of Ward 3.
Your ward looks at it.
Yes, but that's the history. Preston Springs is the history of Preston. And when you know where you come from and who you are, where you came from and why you existed, it's important to remember that. So you need to remember the history of who we are, but it's also important to remember where we're going and why we're going there. And when we maintain that sense of the history and the traditions and the culture of our communities, we're investing in our future by doing that. And as I look around our city, I look at all the drawing cards that we have here, and it causes me to take a second look when I go to other places. And why am I going there? What are the drawing cards? And I keep looking back to Cambridge, and I think about the Idea Exchange. I think about the pedestrian bridge, and I think about the School of Architecture and Conestoga College, the Gaslight District, and Blackbridge Road out in Hesper. There's so many things that we have in our community that draw the community together, but draw people here. And there's an old saying that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And by investing and by passing this motion tonight, I think we are demonstrating that we have care for our community, for the growth and well-being of our community by having this fund available. And I think that demonstrates that we care about our community. And I have no choice but to support it. We are being transformed from a traditionally a foundry and textile industry to technology, education, and manufacturing. We care about the future of our community. We care about where we're going, and we want people to come back to Cambridge to grow our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adjei.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I'm very excited about this motion. I'd like to thank Mr. Ulmer and Mr. Goodrum for bringing this bold initiative forward. I think it's a perfect time for it. It's perfect because it's just before the LRT, and hopefully it will bring the LRT to the city sooner. So I think it's perfect timing. We've seen what this has done for the city of Kitchener, Similar Fund. It's done enormous growth in their downtown. So I'm really hopeful this is something that will happen in Cambridge as well. We've seen all the letters of support we've seen from the BIA and other members of the community. And I think also too, what I really like about this proposal is over half the fund is basically being transferred from the Economic Development Reserve. We don't have any more industrial land in Boxwood anyway, so over half the fund is basically paid for already. So I think this is a really bold and smart initiative. And together with development charge exemptions, I think it could be a real boon for the downtown, so I'm in full support of this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mehta.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. The motion's got my support for a lot of the reasons that have already been mentioned around the table. I believe it's a very forward-looking report, that it covers all the aspects of how our downtowns are going to be changing. And to revitalize a core, you've got to do something different than what you've done in the past. And this report does acknowledge that fully. And I've seen the efforts done in other municipalities. Shannon had mentioned Kitchener. Guelph's invested quite a bit in their core. I think Hamilton has as well. And Brantford, they used a lot of their casino money in the downtown, put a new square down there. So, you know, it does work to invest in the core, and that's what it is. It's an investment. And for every dollar that you invest, you tend to get 10 back, although it could be far more than that. But anyways, basically the city has to step up and do something with the core. We're doing that, and I believe it's going to ripple outwards, and we're going to see good dividends for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Yes, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. This is different. This is different. We're heading in a different direction. I support the motion. I do have concerns about it being shared throughout the community. I don't want this funding to be divisive. Okay? It needs to be shared through the community and the priorities looked after properly. And I mean, I don't want to keep repeating what everybody else said, but this is a way to make progress and impact on our community. Positive impact in all three cores, because all three cores need help. But we also have three cores in this community that are totally different from one another, and we need to recognize that. And we need to take a look at the rivers, and we're a river community, 2 rivers, and we need to optimize the opportunity with the rivers and the architecture in this community. The School of Architecture is great. We need people we need people in the course, all 3 cores. So we need to remember that, and I support this 100%. And again, I'd like to thank the people that brought this up and thought it out, because this is progressive and will help our community. Not today, but it will for years to come. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And the chair had a few comments as well. And I again wanted to reach out and thank our interim city manager, Jeff Wilmer, James Goodrum, and all the staff support for bringing forward a very thorough report. This to me is community building at its best, with the 5 pillars that have been identified in the report. I think we've got the basis of the future of our downtown cores that is really based on community building. I am in strong support. And with this, we will move on and call the question, and if I understand correctly, it'll be a recorded vote. Thank you. And it passes. Thank you so much. The screen is green. And with that, we're going to call just a 5-minute recess. Thank you. 10-second warning. Council members, please. Ms. Barnes, yes. Thank you very much. We reconvene, and I think what we might do, with your permission, council members, is to move forward on the notice of motion so our delegation can be heard right away, if that's okay with everybody. Yep. So I will ask for the notice of motion and Brian Kennedy to come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. It's a pleasure to be here tonight for the first time representing the Downtown Cambridge BIA. As some of you may know, I'm also the Executive Director for the Hespeler Village BIA, but tonight we'll be addressing the Mill Street parking. I would like to take a moment to thank you on behalf of the Downtown Cambridge BIA for your continued support with the efforts to resolve the core area parking concerns that we face. The Downtown Cambridge BIA acknowledges that the recent changes to temporarily eliminate paid parking in the Dixon and Mill Street lot has removed the ability for extended stay parking in the downtown core area. We also recognize the importance and immediate need for businesses, their staff, and all patrons to have the option available for longer stay parking in our core area. After reviewing staff's recommendations, we're very satisfied with option 2 presented to have Mill Street reinstated as paid parking as of Tuesday, August the 6th, 2019. Further, the Downtown Cambridge BIA is looking forward to coming back ahead of the temporary changes being lifted with recommendations on parking to meet the demands of our membership and their patrons. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll put the motion on the floor. Councillor Liggett.
Just so there's not confusion, well, there is confusion totally all the way around. So the motion that I have here, the motion form, is not the correct one. I take responsibility for the incorrect motions going forward. I did not have any knowledge of option 1, 2, and 3 until today, and sitting down with this business memo as I sat down here tonight. So my apologies for the motion that we thought was going to be on the floor, because this is brand new here. And that this has come out of the BIA working with our staff, which is good to see. So it's a good thing that they have been doing here today. So the motion that I'm going to put on the floor is the one that is on page 120 of our business memo, and it is option 2 as the BIA has requested. So the motion is that council reinstate paid parking in the Mill Street lot to accommodate extended stay parking as of Tuesday, August 6th, 2019. And as staff has laid out, the reason for that rather than immediately is that because of the civic holiday, and it gives our staff time to set up the equipment, to reactivate the pay machine, that sort of thing. So I hope that you all are looking at that business memo and understand that that's what you will be voting for in my motion going forward. And so that is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mann. It's in your business memo that we all got tonight when we sat down. The purple one, the second last page, page 120, or yes, page 120. No, page 20, sorry, it's a P. I can't see it through the the blue respect integrity.
Okay, I'll just
So
give
that is the
members
motion
of
I'm putting
council-
on the floor, and Councillor Mann has seconded.
Okay, so I'll just give a minute for council members to identify that motion.
So that's okay with the clerk as well?
Yes. Okay, so the motion is on the floor. Are there any comments or questions from members of council? Any debate? Seeing none, we're ready to call the question. All those in favor? The chair's in favor. That motion carries. Thank you. And thank you very much for the BIA for coming in. Right, now we'll move forward to item number 10, and we're expecting a presentation from Brooke Lambert. Welcome, Brooke. And this is on the 2018 annual report.
Well, good evening, Mayor McGarry, members of council, and members of the public. I am very pleased to be here tonight to present the 2018 annual report. And to begin, I would like to thank all of the staff, volunteers, community members who've worked so hard in the service of our community over the past year. This document is a reflection of the collective efforts of many across Cambridge, including all of our partners. I would also like to thank the team from the Corporate Strategy, Communication, and Finance divisions who worked diligently to reach out to all of our departments to provide these highlights for you today. Thank you to Sherry, Sean, Myrna, Suzanne, and Aaron especially. 2018 was, in many ways, a year where several things came together for the city. As each of you will know, community building is a process that takes time, and we've spoken a lot about that tonight as well. It is often many years before we can start to see the whole picture take shape, as opposed to the individual elements. When the Cambridge Connected Strategic Plan was approved in 2016, it recognized that in order to move our city forwards towards a new future, we would have to focus on the people and places that make Cambridge special, as well as encouraging prosperity for our residents and businesses through greater opportunities for all. As we know, the last several years have been full of opportunities to look carefully at the way we serve our community and provide accountable and transparent service. This annual report is one way that we check in with all of our stakeholders. It is an important part of how we manage our performance corporately. In 2018, we saw community building in action. This report provides an overview of how the goals and objectives of Cambridge Connected have been addressed. It outlines some of the key initiatives, partnerships, recognition, and outcomes. However, most importantly, it speaks to the impact that we as a city working together can have on our residents and businesses. Now, I'd like to take a few minutes to provide some of the highlights that this document includes. The theme of people looks at how the city can support the well-being of our community and provide engaged and responsive governance and leadership. So what does this report tell us? Well, Cambridge is safer. The opening of Fire Station 6, the city's first new fire station in over 35 years, and the hiring of 20 new firefighters was an important step in supporting the safety and well-being of our growing community, improving fire services and emergency response times across the city. With the further development and implementation of the Diversity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Action Plan, including the first Conversation with a Purpose, participation in the Disability Mentoring Day, installation of new ramps for accessibility in our businesses and trails, Cambridge is becoming more welcoming and inclusive. Cambridge is for all ages. By reaching out to our high school students, partnering on the Smart City Challenge focused on child and youth well-being, engaging older adults, and making improvements at facilities that serve all of our residents, we are demonstrating how we are a community for everyone. And Cambridge is responsive and proud. The completion of several internal and external facing initiatives to improve customer service, improve project management, public and staff engagement have occurred in 2018. Civic pride was also a focus, and with the new Cambridge sign, it was a great place for group shots, as you see, and of course for many, many selfies all over social media. And while all of these are noteworthy, the real impact is evident in the stories from our community. The Ambassador Program is a good example of this. This team launched in 2018 and immediately began to make a positive impact in our core areas, connecting with our businesses, cleaning up our public spaces, and being ambassadors with the community. This story sums it up.
My name is Andy Hassam. I'm the lead hand with the Ambassador team. We are in charge of all 3 downtown cores of Cambridge. We look after the garbages, the hanging baskets, the debris. We look after the grass in the parking lots. We just talk to a lot of citizens, really. We're in contact every day with Waterloo Regional Police. Essentially, we're a second set of eyes for them. We contact them when we have issues, or they'll even contact us if it's smaller issues that we can tend to. We're all in constant communication with a lot of business owners. Instead of having to be emailing and making phone calls, they can actually have somebody come down and talk to them about their concerns. I think it's a bit more personal and a bit more real. In the first year, the Ambassador team has responded to over 1,600 debris calls, and they go directly to our phones so we can get to them as fast as we can. My favorite part of the job is probably feeling like I'm making a difference. The people that we talk to on the streets are very positive, and they're always very thankful for what we're doing.
With the completion of 2 iconic projects, cornerstones of the Back to the Rivers vision, 2018 was a really big year. This report outlines how Cambridge is connected. The new pedestrian bridge opened in 2018 and has become a valuable, accessible, and beautiful addition to the Galt core area. Use of the bridge has been tremendous, and in the first 8 months alone saw over 200,000 crossings, and you're right, it's probably over 300,000 by now. Cambridge values our heritage. The old post office and New Idea Exchange was officially opened on July the 6th with a big street party just over 1 year ago. This project brought together old and new and is a beautiful example of conservation, restoration, preservation, and tasteful modern enhancements that have put Cambridge on the map as the home to this architectural gem. Cambridge is sustainable. The city has continued to take care of our environment, our forests, and reduce energy usage through our LED replacement program. The LED program alone has led to significant operational savings of over $370,000 per year. And Cambridge likes to have fun and play. The many events and celebrations held each year bring together thousands of people. The city has also focused on improving various recreation facilities, including playgrounds, the BMX park, and parks to play baseball, soccer, beach volleyball, or just enjoy the outdoors. Again, while the city has been busy, it is important to remember how all of this can together make it vibrant places where people love to be. This next story speaks to that.
My name's Matt Rolleman. I'm the operating partner of Local 13. When we got here 2 years ago, I joined the BIA board pretty much right away, and we do work very closely with the city. Downtown Galt, one thing that struck me about downtown is just how beautiful the city itself is, the architecture, the beautiful old buildings. With the light show on the old post office is fantastic. The pedestrian bridge has been a great addition to the downtown, and we see more and more people coming downtown to shop, to come to the restaurants, to come to the great coffee shops. It's a different culture when you're in an old building, and I think that's part of something that you get in a downtown core like this.
Lastly, the opportunity to contribute and succeed is something that we all hope for in our lives. In 2018, opportunity really was everywhere in Cambridge. Cambridge attracts jobs. Sales of the Boxwood Business Campus totaled $7.9 million, and over 23 new businesses opened in Galt, Hespeler, and Preston. Our economic development offices were also excited to move into the new Grand Innovation site, next door neighbors to the Conestoga College Applied Research Hub. In 2018, the City of Cambridge was honored to be part of a delegation that visited the Toyota Motor Corporation in Japan. Recently, in the spirit of this long-term commitment and partnership, Toyota announced a $1.4 billion investment locally. Great news for our community. Cambridge is also getting quite a reputation, but a good one, as a prime location for the film industry, and this is having an impact on our businesses and tourism. In 2018, 33 days of filming for shows like The Handmaid's Tale and others generated about $2.3 million for the local economy. And congratulations to our film team, as they were recently nominated as Outstanding Film Office, one of the first times, actually the first time, a Canadian city has been nominated for that award. So clearly that reputation is growing. Cambridge is also integrated and coordinated. Underpinning the quality of life throughout our community is the need to provide those integrated and coordinated infrastructure services. Cambridge is working hard to work with our partners. One example of this is how we were able to prioritize improvements to an intersection following concerns raised by these grade 5 Manchester students. We're also taking the time to manage our assets and materials as sustainably as possible, and we're recognized as being the second best municipality in Ontario for concrete and asphalt recycling. Lastly, this final video highlights some of the impacts of this work.
Grand Cafe has been open for over 16 years. When we moved here from Toronto like 19 years ago, there were no cafes downtown. We had to go in and renovate and actually build the cafe because there was no coffee shop here at that time. We do have people that live in Cambridge that'll come in to take a look at the cafe just because it's been in a lot of different films. When we have film crews come to town, it really does benefit everyone. They're staying at hotels, so the hotels benefit. They need to eat, so they buy food in the area. It does bring economic benefit to the businesses that are in Cambridge.
It is important to note that the annual report also includes the 2018 financial report and consolidated financial statements. The city remains committed to transparency and accountability with respect to its financial position. These statements are the same as those that were presented to Council earlier this year in May. And in 2018, the Corporation of the City of Cambridge received its 3rd Canadian Award for Financial Reporting for the 2017 Annual Financial Report. With this report, we have continued to strive to achieve that standard and hope to submit this report for consideration as well. In summary, 2018 was an exciting year where many key initiatives came together. And it wasn't all about what was done, but how it was done. We are starting to see the impacts of a strategic, collaborative, and creative approach to city building. While there continues to be many challenges in our community, the foundations have been established for all of our community, our staff, and our partners to work together to make our city come alive with opportunities for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any, a couple of comments or questions? Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I couldn't help but notice all the awards going through. Do you know how many we've won in 2018?
Well, my understanding is that Councillor Reid counted them, and there was 17, but probably more. These are the ones we know of, but I know that the various teams are doing great work and continue to be being recognized for that.
Okay, and thank you for the report. It was definitely a great news story. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, and thanks so much for our presentation. It was really enjoyable. It's lovely to see our city in that light. Councillor Mann, you have the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Donna Reid, the 2018 annual report, the report 19-200, the 2018 annual report, and the 2018 I think there's a typo. So it'll be
that never happens.
That the 2018 annual report be received for information.
Thank you. And speaking to the motion, Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, as Brooke mentioned, I went through and I started looking at it and I think, oh my goodness, here's another award, here's another award. So I started counting them up, and I counted at 17, but as she said, I'm sure that we probably have more than that. And I think we need to blow our own horn, and we need to tell people how great this city is. When we were talking about it before, I said, there should be fireworks. There should be fireworks going out the side the windows there that we can see that go along with this particular report, because it tells us we have done so much in this past year that we can be proud of. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, because it happened in my ward, is in the Forbes estate. I don't know if any of you watch the Frankie Drake Mysteries. I do. I just love it. It's a period piece of a woman detective back, and it takes place in Toronto, but they have filmed it in the Forbes estate, so I can hardly wait for the new ones to come out so I can see this and enjoy watching the Forbes estate within our film industry. So I just wanted to say thanks to all of our staff for the great work they do, and for the fact that we live in a great city, and I'm very proud to be a member of this council that helps to make it a great city.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move forward to the consent procedure. Councillor Urmeta.
Well, thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Montero. The consent as printed.
Thank you. Speaking to the motion, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and if I may, through you, I was really pleased with the status of the city's finance and potential funding initiatives report that came out, and there was a lot of work that was put into that, and it really gave us a good picture of where we stand and how we fit as far as our debt load is concerned and all those things. And I just wonder if we could give direction to staff maybe to put their take on the priorities of the 14 different initiatives or investment opportunities that are facing us, and if they could come back with that at a later date.
Thank you. So as staff direction?
Please.
Thank you. We'll take that as direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move forward to correspondence. Just note that there's some correspondence. Oh, I'm sorry, what did I do? I forgot to call a question. How about that? And before that, I've got Councillor Liggett. Sorry, I'm way ahead of you.
Follow up to what Councillor Mann has said. It's my understanding, though, that some of these projects are not just investment projects, but also infrastructure projects. So, and they've only named some of the projects here. So I would think there's a lot more than 14. So if they could please go through some of the other big ticket items as well and give us their feedback on those priorities, that sort of thing, or even if they think, I don't know, that maybe we shouldn't do some, or if we do some maybe in 10 years versus this term of council, whatever.
Thank you. And the clerk tells us that that is possible, and they can report out at the quarterly report that they bring forward from Budget and Audit Committee, if that's acceptable. Now I think I'm calling the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Under correspondence from... Oh, I missed her. Is she coming forward? Eventually, I will get on the right page as everybody else. Yes. Helen Kelly, will you come forward? You had a few words. Thank you. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll be speaking tonight to a piece of correspondence that is in your package. Thank you for allowing me, first of all, I should say thank you for having me here at Council and Madam Mayor and City staff. On behalf of the Cambridge Public Library, I'm here this evening to discuss an important issue to our community. I'm here to ask you for your support and endorsement in helping to solve an issue that's impacting our ability to serve library users. Members of the Canadian Urban Libraries Council, which is called CULC, of which the Cambridge Public Library is a member, spend approximately $100 million a year in public funds on library acquisitions. Locally in Cambridge, we spend $626,700 on library acquisitions in all of the formats in our local library branches to ensure that we acquire publications and other resources that are in demand by library users. So even with this significant expenditure, we increasingly struggle to obtain digital publications from multinational publishers due to cost pressures and because of the often restrictive licensing limitations that are applied specifically to digital publications. In order to properly service our communities, we need to ensure that we have access to and can actually afford digital publications. Publishers primarily headquartered outside of Canada are limiting access to digital publications by Canadian libraries. And even when they make a publication available, they make it prohibitively expensive to acquire digital publications. So by way of example, we've been talking a lot tonight about The Handmaid's Tale. And I think that everyone here would be very surprised to know that in our library, you cannot get it as an e-audiobook because we can't buy it. You can buy it because you can go to Audible. It is exclusively owned by Amazon's Audible, and they will not sell it to Canadian libraries. I'm sure you're very surprised to hear that. So in that specific format, and this speaks to accessibility of formats, we cannot supply that. That is also the same case with a book called Common Ground, which was written by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. That e-audio format is exclusive to Amazon's Audible, and I can't purchase it and put it in my collection. So I think that's a significant issue. The other issue is that when we can purchase something that's in an e-format, the cost is prohibitive. So an example of that would be Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened? The cost is twice the price of a print book. So for us to have purchased that book, and we did, and we purchased it as an e-book, that's $104.76 for that book. So this is obviously a problem. Another example is 1 year ago, Tor, which is an imprint of Macmillan Publishers, which is one of the big 5 international multinational publishers, they began an embargo on new ebooks for 4 months before allowing public libraries to purchase. So you want to get a new ebook, you're excited about it, you want to borrow it from our catalog, there's a 4-month embargo before we can purchase it. So those restrictions and costs make it very difficult for us to fulfill our mandate. We're integral to developing proficient readers and to ensuring that kids succeed in school through early literacy programs, and more digital literacy programs are part of what we do to ensure that Cambridge citizens can contribute to our digital world. Additionally, many seniors, low-income families, youth, and new Canadians find that libraries are a crucial tool for participation in their community. Restrictions on libraries accessing digital publications, including books, magazines, and newspapers, hamper our capacity to provide modern digitized services to those demographic groups and other library users. So I am asking you to recognize the important role that libraries play in our communities, and in turn, ask the federal government to prioritize funding a solution for the barriers that Canadian libraries face accessing digital publications. The Cambridge Public Library Board has sent a letter about this unfair e-publication issue in pricing to our local members of Parliament, and I was able to speak to Brian May in person last week. Brian is very supportive of libraries. We see him in our buildings a lot, and he is very supportive of equal access to library material in a variety of formats. He sees this as an accessibility issue. The Canadian Urban Library Council has engaged the services of Temple Scott Associates to lead this advocacy campaign, and CULC will be presenting a policy solution to the federal government immediately following the election in October, seeking a funding allocation in the 2020 budget for libraries. So I am here this evening on behalf of the Cambridge Public Library Board to ask you to support as a municipality this issue, which will be taken then up with the federal government. I have provided a draft resolution in your package, which the clerk has included, and I would ask Council to consider adopting it to signal your support for our libraries on this issue, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, Councillor Wolf, you have the motion and it's acceptable to read as printed.
Through you, Madam Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adshade. There's a very long whereas, but I'll just read the, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Cambridge do hereby 1. Indicate our support for the Canadian Urban Libraries Council in its efforts to increase access to digital publications for library users in the City of Cambridge and across Canada. 2. Call on the federal government to investigate the barriers faced by libraries in acquiring digital publications and the problems that poses for vulnerable demographic groups in Canada. And finally, 3. Further ask the federal government to develop a solution that increases access to digital publications across Canada and assist libraries in meeting the cost requirements to acquire digital publications.
Okay, thank you. Speaking to the motion, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question that I'll ask after the motion has been passed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Devine.
Yes, I have absolutely no problem supporting the motion. None whatsoever. Could this be construed as a Charter of Rights issue?
It's interesting. Canadian Urban Libraries Council has been working on this through you, Madam Chair, I should have said that first, for 5 years. So in 2014, this was originally taken up with our provincial representatives because the Public Libraries Act is governed through the province. And it was also approached from the Competition Bureau federally. But although there was all kinds of advocacy, nothing moved forward. So at this point, CULC has retained a government relations group, which is Temple Scott, and they are advising them on the path forward. And what they are trying to do is get municipalities that have audiences that have a population of 100,000 or greater to support this at the municipal level and then the provincial level, and then they will be taking it to the federal level to see if there is a government way that we can get multinational publishers to treat us fairly and make sure that we have access to digital publications. So it's actually been a 5-year campaign.
Again, through the chair, I would also think this would be an accessibility issue, AODA issue. I would think. So I mean, I support it 100%. I mean, it's criminal, is what it is.
Okay. All right. Any further question or comments? Seeing none, I will ask and call for the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a question, and please don't take this wrong, but we've heard about the library, and we've talked about the library users and the Cambridge Public Library and the library acquisitions, and then we heard about the Cambridge Public Library Board. And I wonder if there's an appetite by the board to bring the word library back into the idea exchange. I've had people come into town and say, is that a new business that you've opened up? Or is that something else? And I think and all we'd have to do is say library or idea exchange library or library idea exchange. So I just want to throw that out on the floor, and maybe that's something that you could take back and see if the board would consider that, because I think it has caused some confusion for people who certainly visit our community, and I know it takes a long time to change ideas, and maybe I'm just a dinosaur and I belong in that section of the library. I don't know, but I'll just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take another comment from council, if that's all right. Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Helen and I have had this conversation just in the last few months on the same, exactly the same topic. And I think that if, when we did the old post office, and if we just simply called that the idea exchange and left all the rest of the libraries called the libraries, we might have had a better buy-in from the public on the name, the idea exchange, because that building is the epitome of idea exchange, and I think it's perfectly named. But all of the other libraries are libraries, right? So, you know, maybe take that back to the board as well and consider doing that. I know it's going to cost you money and all of the paperwork, and all of your documents and everything, but maybe one little bite at a time.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you both for your comments. Actually, you surprised me, Councillor Liggett, because I know you use our download library all the time. So I was thinking there are probably things that you have on hold or you haven't been able to get electronically, and you probably don't understand why we haven't purchased them. So I know you're very supportive of that motion as well. But yeah, I will certainly take your comments back. And of course, Councillor Wolf is on our board. So our next meeting is at the end of September, and we can certainly put that on the agenda.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we'll move forward. And any other business? Seeing none, any non-jurisdictional items? And at this point, just before we move into the closing bylaws, I wanted to just make note that this is a bittersweet moment for us at Council and at the City of Cambridge. On behalf of all of us at City Council and staff, I want to say goodbye to Michael DeLulo, our City Clerk, who's been here for 5 years, who is moving on to a new opportunity, and just publicly thank him for all of the work, the dedication, the quiet way he goes about making sure we stay all on track, including myself, and that's not easy to do. But just thank you for your service, your commitment, and your positive demeanor to us here at City Council and to City staff. And I just would call for a round of applause at the moment and then comments. And there's going to be comments. Councillor Mehta.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to basically echo that. I think you said it all very well. Michael was always around whenever I had a question, and I was always impressed with his knowledge and his personal demeanor, so I want to thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
I'm just wondering about the notice of motions. Have they been, do we need to take notice of them?
We can acknowledge them.
Acknowledge them. That's, yep. Okay, fine. That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you. Councillor Montero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You stole a bit of my thunder about Michael DeLulo. He's been here 5 years. Obviously, I've been here the 5 years that he's been along in the clerk's office. I want him to know that I did appreciate and I still appreciate all he did for me particular, but all of council. To the point that even on a little office that I share with Mike Mann, we refer to him. Have you spoken to Mickey D or Michael D'Angelo? We even had our own name for him because he was a wealth of information. A lot of times when we weren't sure about certain motions or certain things, especially during election time, we went for him. And if he didn't know the answer right away, if it was something out of the spectrum, he'd go and find out. So, Michael, I appreciate all you did for me in particular, but for all of council. Sometimes we picked your brain, drove you crazy, but you know what? You're going to be missed. And I hope that someday down the road, you come back. I would love to see that. I know that you're moving on, you have an opportunity to do something else, and good for you. I wish you all the luck, but that I'm sad that you're leaving. I even called you some names, which I can't say now, but thank you so much for all you did for us, and particularly me, myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Yes, Michael, I can honestly say I'm sorry to see you go. We've had certainly some good debates over the last 4.5 years. You might have won one or two of them. But thanks for all the work you've done for the city and all the help you've given me personally. Okay, anytime I reach out, you're always there. You always respond to emails or phone calls. And good luck in your new job, because I know you will do very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Michael, we'll definitely miss you. You showed great patience with council, and whoever's filling your shoes will have big shoes to fill. Thank you for all the help you gave me personally. Whenever I had a problem or needed something worded for a motion or needed advice, you were always willing to give it, and I wish you well in your new position. I know you're moving up, and you deserve that honor.
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I too, we're going to miss you, Michael, for sure, and I'd like to thank you the couple times where I had to fill in for the mayor or for general committee. You were great, helped me organize, and you made me look organized and almost efficient. So that takes quite a doing. So thank you, Michael. And you're young, you're always calm, professional, knowledgeable, and we're going to miss you. And we know you're going to do really well in your new CEO position. So all the best, Michael, for sure. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I was going to save this for another time, but I too, through you, I too want to thank you, Michael, for all that you have done for us. And the most difficult thing that you've had to do is come into the office that Frank and I share and talk to us, and try to get a word in edgewise when Frank's talking. And he's not talking, he's shouting and using his hands. But you have provided comic relief for us. You have provided incredible direction and information to us, and especially for me as a new councillor, I came to you and you were always there to help, and always professional, and always willing to do whatever you could to help me navigate the rough waters. Like I said, you're a wealth of information, you're a man of integrity. And our loss is their gain. And as Frank said, I sure hope that you do come back to Cambridge one day, because you are a great leader, and you demonstrate the qualities of a leader who gives people the opportunity to lead and who empowers others. And we see that in your office. And I thank you for the leadership that you have demonstrated as the clerk in your office. And I will miss you, but I know where you are. And I can always reach out and touch you. All the very best to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Michael, I'm sure that I was the one councillor that tested your patience to the extreme. You can be honest and shake your head, yes, I would know. Oh, there's somebody else around. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good to hear. We had our times butting heads, and we both came out the other end of it, I think, with respect for each other. And I also want to thank you for all that you have done for me, even though I'm not in the building that often and I haven't come to you that often, but I do appreciate it for the times that has happened. I do want to just leave you with one thing. I promise that what happened in Dubai will stay in Dubai.
Councillor Reid.
You'll have to wait to hear from me Friday.
We always save the best for last. So best of luck, Michael, in your new role. And with that, we will move forward with Councillor Montero reading the confirmatory bylaw.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Adshade, confirmatory bylaw as printed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. And just before the close of meeting, I missed Councillor Ermetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was doing some research this week about swimming pools, and some municipalities, actually quite a few in the U.S. and one in Ontario, they've been looking at pools with retractable roofs. I don't know if that could fit into our future or not, but I think it might be something for us to have a look at. So I just wanted, maybe that could be direction in the long term for staff. It's not urgent, I don't think, but it's something that maybe they could look at. I know Chatham-Kent has done one, or the town of Blenheim, which is now part of Chatham, and all over the U.S. So they're trying to combine the benefits of indoor and outdoor pools into one structure. And I'm sure there's pros and cons, so it's something that would have to be reviewed in detail. Thank you.
And perhaps you can have some conversation with staff and bring forward some of those ideas. Thank you. Okay, we're finally there. So the close of meeting, Councillor Reid.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mann that the council meeting does now adjourn at 9:19 p.m.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you so much, everybody. Meeting adjourned.